Greetings, Internet, and welcome back to Putting Shells on Shelves. That's right. So you know what day it is. I hope you do, because I don't. Anyway, so we've already covered the original run of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures from 1988 and 1989, and we're only going with the basic figures from each set for the time being. We'll branch out to the other little various subsets coming up in the future. So for today's video, we're jumping straight on back. We're going to time warp again back to the year 1990 for the 1990 arrangement lineup set of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, shall we? Alright, so on the table in front of me, what you can just kind of barely see poking up, are the actual entire lineup from the original 1990 wave. There we go, that's a good word for it. 1990 wave of figures. There, alright. So for this particular wave, Playmates Toys was really starting to kind of branch out. If I'm not mistaken, I think this one actually has more figures than the previous lineup. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to double check my facts because I've got the entire 89 wave right over there on the shelf, as you should already be well aware. So give me 1 moment. I'm going to do some counting and then I'm going to be right back. Ready, steady, go! So 10, count them, 10. Editing me, put the number 10 somewhere on the screen, and for what that reason is that I'm having you put that there. And then for the 1990 wave, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 figures. Just going to double check my counting because I make a mistake every now and again. And I'm sure eventually people are going to start calling me out on my mistakes. So here we go one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13. Okay, yes, so there are 13 figures in this wave. Of these figures, we have some classics. We've got some fan favorites from the entire line right here on this table. Without any rhyme or reason, I'm just going to pick up the figures, tell you what their names are, and let's go. First on the table, we have Pizza Face, the mutant pizza-based villain. Now, if I remember correctly, I could be very wrong on this. This guy's whole shtick was that he was a pizza chef looking for a special ingredient, something that would set his pizzas apart from all the other pizzerias in New York City. And somehow he happened to get hold of some mutagen ooze, and he was like, this'll be a perfect thing to put on my pizza. I went kind of Transylvanian there, but bear with me. And so he added mutagen to the pizza, and when he took a bite, he mutated himself somehow. I guess he lost a leg when he experimented with the pizza. But yeah, this guy's got some really righteous sculpting and little details going on. He's got pizza sauce on his hat, and he's like all covered in gnarly bugs and stuff. He comes with a removable peg leg. Pardon. And he's dropping all of his accessories, just as I thought he would. But he's got a removable peg leg, which is literally just a pizza box with a pizza slicer cut through it with a kind of, I want to say, gruesome looking smear of sauce, almost like the pizza itself was alive, or there was something in the box that was alive. And apparently it was turtle pizza, if you can read that little sticker down there. And the reason why this leg is removable is because he has a gimmick where you can swap it out with his cleaver up here. I'm trying to be careful because, this old plastic tends to get brittle. But you can swap out his cleaver weapon with his pizza cutter peg leg thing, and boom, now he can wield his pizza leg, or his pizza cutter leg, and walk on a meat cleaver. Isn't that just gruesome? And of course he also comes with a couple of accessories. The one that I had with him, of course, having fallen on the ground and disappeared into the ether. Seriously, where the heck did that thing go? You didn't see where it went, did you? Of course not, because it was off camera. But he has a pizza box shield, which was molded in solid red plastic. Seriously, where is it? Is it, like, directly under the middle? There it was. It was, like, right in the middle between all the wheels of this old office chair. But he comes with a pizza box shield that proudly proclaims that it is ninja pizza. It's got, like, a sword sticking out of the top and pizza slice and ooh, there's grenades and there's all kinds of nifty stuff molded into that. But yeah, that's Pizza Face. At least that's the quick rundown of him. Oh, he also had a couple of pizza discs which were molded in that same red color plastic, and it was about, I think, a little bigger than a quarter. They're boxed away somewhere. I don't have them on display because having the accessories for all of these guys on display in a way in which they would actually not take up the entire shelf was literally almost impossible. I was lucky to get all the accessories onto Fugitoid, but we're not going to him yet. The next figure we're going to take a look at, I just realized that I'm like cutting off the top of my head. Here, hold on just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. A slight adjustment. There we go. Okay. So anyway, like I was saying, next on the table, we have the Batman wannabe, Wingnut, and his little friend, Screwloose. Now, Screwloose is a mosquito, and he's molded in solid plastic, all one color. And what he's supposed to do is, you know, you just kind of carefully just hook him / balance him onto Wingnut's back, like this. And that's basically his entire shtick. At least in toy form. I'm sure there was more to him in the cartoon, which, regretfully, I've not seen every episode yet, but I have the complete series on DVD, so that's something I can work on in the future. But anyway, so we've got Wingnut, I think he's supposed to be a fruit bat, or a vampire bat. I forget which one has the nose that's all, like, upward and pointed like that. I know a lot of them have that same thing, but he's supposed to be based off of a specific kind of bat. But I'm just kind of rambling now at this point. But obviously, he's supposed to be a kind of a parody on Batman, because, you know, back in the day, Batman had the blue and gray color scheme going on, with, like, the yellow utility belt and stuff. And, yes, obviously, he's one of the crime fighters. He's one of the good guys. And I'm trying to think of things that can be said about him that I haven't seen said by, like, every other Ninja Turtle YouTuber out there. Obviously, at some point, when he mutated, he came out with a pair of little tiny, not quite up to snuff bat wings, so he had to get these bigger mechanical ones fabricated so he could actually fly. Because, as you can see, he's a kind of hefty fellow. He's, to quote Wayne Halleck of Radical Retro Turtle Toy Talk, his corpulent keister. He just, you know, couldn't get that off the ground with his little bitty baby bat wings, so he had to make these bigger ones. He came with several accessories. Obviously, he came with his yellow utility belt, which has all kinds of nifty things on it, like a bunch of sticks of dynamite, or a bomb, if you will. A bat face, you know, like a bat head right here, and all kinds of other nifty stuff. And even an entire bat just hooked onto his utility belt right here. He also came with a little bat gun, or wingnut gun, or whatever you want to call it. And he had a grenade that came with him, but unfortunately I don't have the grenade, which, because they're just such little pieces of plastic, were very easily lost, and are now pretty expensive to try and track down all those goofy little accessories. And speaking of goofy little accessories, now that we're done with Wingnut, we're going to move on to Scumbug, who's the next one on the table. Now, this guy, I believe his gimmick was that he was, or his backstory says that he was originally an exterminator, and yeah, then apparently oozed and he got mixed up with a cockroach, and well, now he is Scumbug, the Turtle Exterminator. I think that's what his title was. A whole lot of stuff I'm going to have to go back and do some research on, and if I'm wrong on anything and you guys actually know what the facts are that I'm mixing up, please, for the love of all that is nice in the world, put those in the comments. I want to know. And be civil. Please be civil. He's got his antenna up here tied up like a ponytail of sorts. He's got an articulated mandible jaw down here, like blah, 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 blah. And he comes with his backpack of anti-turtle gas, I think. Oh, toxic turtle kill gas. He's got his little sprayer gun there. And another thing this guy came with, speaking of those silly little accessories, he came with a bunch of little bitty tiny plastic cockroaches to come with him. I think there were supposed to be 6 in total when the figure was released originally. I have 4 that go with this one, but they are packed away because in the same way as with Pizza Face over there was almost literally no way to display them properly with all the other figures set up on the shelf. Getting back to the figure himself, though, he has some awesome sculpting and paintwork. I mean, check out those bulging bloodshot eyes and the little mandibles sticking out of the sides of his mouth, and his kind of the fly-esque mutations. Now he's got some parts where he still looks basically kind of human, you know, like his pointy, spiky, flesh tone arms. And then other spots he's got like the big mutated like bug arms and like big mutated claw foot thing, and his other foot was starting to bust out of his boot, but apparently he didn't quite mutate far enough. You know, that's something I don't think many people have mentioned is how do these people, these mutants, you know, do they just go around like this all the time? Do they change their clothes? Do they just have like a whole line of this same outfit? Like, how is he going to get that boot off without cutting it off with that big spiky toe claw sticking out? How? I guess you're not supposed to think about that sort of thing. You're just supposed to be like, that is a cool looking toy. I'm going to play with that toy until it breaks, and then I'm going to have Mom buy me another one. But yeah, that's Scumbug. A very, very cool looking figure with a lot of very cool little intricate things that go with him. Now, speaking of cool looking figures, next we move on to one of my personal favorites, Triceraton. Now, this guy is an evil alien from Dimension X, I believe. At least, that's how it went down in the original cartoon. I think. Again, like I said, I haven't seen every episode. I'm mostly going off of memory and secondhand knowledge that I've pieced together off the internet. But obviously, this guy is a Triceratops alien, and he's a bounty hunter of sorts, I believe. Again, I could be wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments down below. Now, this is one of those toys from the Ninja Turtles toy line that is, unfortunately, nefarious for the fact that they are a bit brittle. Like, it is very hard to find this figure with the tail unbroken, and by some miracle, I happened to find one like that, because he's got a peg system in his crotch area, that's the best way I can think to describe it, where there's a peg that pokes out through the back here for the tail, and then it branches down here for the legs, which are on a ball joint type thing. And just because, you know, the tail only moves back and forth, and I'm sure there are kids out there back in the day who wanted it to go in other directions and just, like, wrenched on it until snap! Or just, you know, having the turtles literally kicking him in the butt so much that it broke. Or again, it could just be, you know, over time, the plastics shrink a little bit and just, you know, the pressure builds up until it comes off. But this guy has some awesome paintwork and some awesome sculpting. Like, check out that face. That is a face that only a mother could love. And just, he is ready for business. He is ready to kick some shell. In the worst way. And And this guy is basically just an anthropomorphic Triceratops, which, if you didn't already guess that from just looking at him, duh. And, yeah. Oh, and for some reason, I don't understand why, it's probably part of his mythos, but on his belt here, he's just got like a thing of rats. I think that's supposed to be kind of a callback to Boba Fett, how he had a thing of Wookiee scalps just attached to his utility belt. But I don't know for certain. And thankfully, this guy didn't come with that many accessories. This guy is complete right here as I'm holding him. He came with 2 guns, a belt, and that was it. That's basically it for Triceraton. Oh, and I love the ripped jeans aesthetic. How he's just got his knees poking out like that. Alright, moving on to the next figure. Because, again, there are 13 of these little guys, and I've only got so much time before the camera there decides that it's going to stop recording and then start recording again. Next on the table, we have another personal favorite of mine, Napoleon Bonafrag, with his little buddy that I can't remember the name of right now. I know I'm supposed to be like telling you all these cool and interesting facts about these toys, but I just suck sometimes. And again, as I mentioned in the last video, there is just so much stuff. Remembering every little detail about every single figure just off the top of your head, that's not an easy feat. It is not an easy feat at all. But anyway, yeah, this Napoleon Bonafrag with his little bug buddy, I think, which has a really cool sculpt on him. And he's supposed to have a pair of little wings that clip into his back, but unfortunately, when I got this guy, that was missing. So I'm either going to have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time to get that silly little piece, or I'm just going to have to, like, get someone to make a 3D model of it so I can print it out with my friend's 3D printer or something. I don't know. I'm talking way too much about that one little piece of plastic. Moving on to this not-so-little piece of plastic. This guy was part of the, what was the name? Punk Frogs. This guy was one of the Punk Frogs created by the Shredder. Those included Genghis Frog, who was in the previous wave. He's the frog with the sunglasses and the boogie board shield. And then there was Napoleon Bonafrag, the real horned toad. And then there was 2 other ones, one of which actually got released during the 2012 Playmates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line. Attila the Frog, I think he was. And there was one more that... Genghis Frog's over there. Napoleon, Attila. There's a 4th one, I can't remember what his name was, but originally in the cartoon, all 4 of them looked like Genghis Frog over there. But Playmates Toys, wanting to kind of give the characters more variants and more, to help differentiate them for the little kids, instead of just pumping out the same action figure with different paint schemes, which they wound up doing anyway with different figures, they, molded him differently, like this. Now, for some reason, he's got piercings. I'm guessing the person or creature he was before had those, and then, when he got mutated, they just transferred over. He comes with a snake accessory. It's like a whip of sorts, I think. He comes with a shield, and he came with one other accessory that I have on his doppelganger, his twin, which I'll show you all here in a little bit. He comes with really nice, like very vibrant, I want to say pastel colors. I could be wrong on that. Just very 90s yellows and pinks. Coloration is very reminiscent of a Toxic Crusaders figure, and I just realized that a couple seconds of that just got chopped off because I wasn't looking at the time. So I'm just going to quickly jump back. This guy has some very 90s vibrant greens and pinks going on, and he's got his shields there, he's got his snake weapon whip thing, which I'm not entirely sure if it wasn't obvious of what that weapon is supposed to be. One thing I think, I will be honest with you, I have never noticed this before. He's got like a little wristband that happens to have a little tiny Ninja Turtle head sculpted into it. Right? I hope y'all can see that, because that is a very cool little feature. And the fact that they actually painted it, that's even better. Because the one on his other arm, they just did nothing with it. They just sculpted it on and left it blank. But yeah, that's Napoleon Bonafrag, the real horned toad. Moving on to the next figure on the table, we have Fugitoid. Dun 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 dun. Beep boop. Yeah, I know that was weak. I'm so sorry. Now this figure is one of the heroic characters. He's one of the allies of the Ninja Turtles, and he came decked out to the nines with all these accessories. He's got this grappler thing on his one arm, then he's got this laser pistol shooting off the other one. He's got some kind of a ray gun thing that pokes out of his chest, which is removable, so that you can actually close up his chest like that. And open. And close. And he comes with this big mechanical bow staff thing, which it looks like you're supposed to be able to attach some other accessories to it, or maybe plug it somewhere onto the figure itself. Because he's got like this peg hole right there, if you can see it, the little dark dot right there. Anyway, this guy is from Dimension X, I believe. In the original cartoon, they said he was from Dimension X. And apparently he was... Now, I might be getting the mythology mixed up, because there have been several different variations of this guy. But I believe the story for this one, or it might be the 2003 version of Fugitoid, was a scientist who was working on a robot, an artificial intelligence technical marvel, and somehow he put his own mind into the robot. Now, again, I forget if that's this one or if that's the 2003 or 2012 version. Another cool thing about this figure, aside from all the detailing and the nice brassy paintwork, is he's one of those translucent figures, as in you can see through him. Now, obviously, very apparently, y'all can't see it like can't see through him the way I can at the moment because the light's shining on him from the front. But with the help of my handy dandy flashlight app on my phone, because I don't seem to have any other flashlights with me at the moment, I can do this and then see how his legs light up with the light behind them. No light. Light. And his arms are the same way. Oh, there we go. Now you can... Now you can see it pretty well. No light. Light. No light. Light. Now that I've just blinded everybody, and if I have, I am so sorry, that has been Fugitoid. Now, he's got some pretty nice detailing on him, like I was starting to say. He's got great paintwork on him. He's got all these extra little details hidden inside of his chest cavity right there. And on the whole, I've just got to say that he is one cool robot. Next, moving on to the next figure on the table, we have one of the most gruesome, hardcore kind of figures that Playmates Toys has put out for the original toy line. And bear with me, I said one of the most gruesome figures from this toy line. We have the incomparable, the often imitated, never replicated, Mutagen Man. Yes, the man, or the character with the floating guts. Now, as you can see, something very wrong happened to this poor son of a gun. And that something was, according to the cartoon, because I actually saw this episode, he was originally just a delivery person who was coming to the Shredder's hideout to drop off some stuff. Apparently he got the wrong address, and it was flowers. He was delivering an arrangement of flowers. Again, if I'm wrong, put it in the comments below. And he happened to stumble his way through the factory until he literally dropped down, fell off a scaffolding or some such, and wound up in the mutagen vat. And the most gruesome part is, while he's just in the vat, calmly talking with the Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady, I think it was, or one of the other incidental characters. I should not use the word incidental. Bebop and Rocksteady were very, very prominent characters in that show. But he's just calmly talking with them while he's just kind of melting and falling apart. His head is the only thing above the goo at one point, and you just see his limbs just floating away from him. And so the Shredder makes a deal with him because he finds out that after having been exposed to the mutagen, that he can take on the form of anyone that he sees. He can literally just look at a person and then just, with some effort and grunting and stuff, he can turn himself into anyone. The Shredder hooks him up with this outfit, a containment thing to keep all his guts and stuff in one place, and all his limbs reattached. And he has him go after the turtles. And, well, things don't quite go well, and the only thing keeping him together is the mutagen, which the Shredder says that he will continue to supply him with if he'll go after the turtles and take care of them for him. But things don't quite work out, like I was starting to say, and the Shredder goes back on his deal and basically just leaves this poor son of a gun to his demise, just leaves him to die. Yeah, pretty grim episode if you think about it. But he has some awesome sculpting. He's got all these spots in his flesh where the flesh has basically been melted away or just torn, and he's got all these big bulging muscles poking out and all these sinewy, fibrous, fleshy bits. And he comes, of course, with this mutagen tank that holds what's left of his guts. And also inside of there, we have, whoop, there goes his accessory. We have a bunch of little yellow plastic accessories that are supposed to be like garbage that's just floating around in there. Hopefully you can see them right here. So you could put water in this guy through this little hole in the top, and you could basically turn him into a mutant snow globe with all that gooey, nasty trash floating around with his intestines and stuff. Lovely. That has been Mutagen Man. Now, as I've stated in previous videos, if there are any of these figures you would like me to go into more detail on in the future, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Moving on to the next figure on the table, we have Ray Fillet and his little sidekick character, Fish Sticks, who is apparently some kind of demolitions expert. Man, that orange is so bright it's hard to see the details. There we go. But how he's got all this dynamite on his back, and he's got his little plunger on the front there. He is ready for business. And he's also got this little helmet that's got a bullet hole or something right there. He is, like I said, he is just ready for business, and he is all set to go. He also came with a little itty-bitty tiny piece of plastic in the shape of a very angry starfish, like Patrick having the worst day. And then, of course, we have Ray Fillet himself. If it weren't obvious, he is a mutated manta ray, and there were several different variations of this guy. The very first one was a color-changing feature. Well, all but one of them have a color-changing feature, and there's variants with the colors of the arrangement of the colors. Like this one has a purple or red V and a purple chest, and then we'll get into that later. But anyway, this guy, he's got a cool kind of cocky grin on his face. He knows what he's up to. He knows what he's into. He knows what he's doing. He's got a pair of scuba flippers for some reason, because you'd think a manta ray would be able to swim just fine with the fins, the wings on the back. I know very little about manta rays. Can you tell? But I guess, once he sprouted legs and arms, he needed the extra little boosts to get himself going underwater. Mutagen Man, why did you drop your gun all of a sudden? I don't understand these toys sometimes. You do all these nice things for them, and they just give you grief. Why? Anyway, yeah. And of course he's got like the little Manta Ray belt buckle, and he's a pretty cool dude. He is another figure that a lot of people are fond of. Personally, I like him, but he's not one of my favorites. So next, moving on, we're going to jump to this portion of the table for a totally radical dude. And no, it's not Michelangelo. It's Mondo Gecko. Now this is another figure that I think is just awesome. I mean, oh, and he's also, unfortunately, like Triceraton, one of the notorious ones for either having this piece missing or having the connector peg being busted off. Thankfully, that's not the case with my particular Mondo Gecko. Oh, excuse me. I haven't had breakfast yet, so I'm starting to get the hiccups, the hunger hiccups. But he's got all this cool sculpting, and he's actually got decent paintwork. There are other figures that, like I've shown you, like Scumbug, who have all this cool detail, like, sculpted into the figure, but just for one reason or another, they never got painted, so a lot of the times you just overlook that. But this guy, they went all out. He's got, like, I think that's one of the funniest things about him, is he's got buck teeth and braces. And, yeah, he's got the... Sorry, I'm just losing my train of thought all of a sudden. It must be the hunger getting to me. I'm not going to eat my toys. But he's got, like, the ponytail going on. He's got that nice little hairdo going on the front. And, of course, like almost every single other Ninja Turtle figure ever released, he came with accessories. His was this cool skateboard right here. That's got like a skull on the top with a snake coming out of it, the one eyeball, and probably green flames. I've never quite understood what that is. I think it's supposed to be flames and purple stuff and all that cool stuff that kids thought were awesome back in the 90s. And of course he actually has basically that same logo on his shirt there, and represented by a sticker, which thankfully has not fallen off of my figure. The only other accessory this guy came with was a sticker sheet so you could customize his skateboard. So, yeah. They had like 3 stickers on it, a fly, a flaming eyeball, and a lightning bolt. I think, again, like I said, too much to process in my little coconut. But he also, another kind of funny detail about this guy is he has a roller skate basically just tied to the tip of his tail. In my mind, I'm picturing the headcanon of, like, he got mutated, he originally liked skateboarding and doing all the, you know, extreme sports stuff, but eventually, or really quickly on, he started hurting his tail, like it was just dragging on the ground, getting all the scales and stuff ripped off. So he threw on that roller skate in order to negate that. That's my personal headcanon. I don't know if that's the the actual case. I don't think the the guys at Playmates Toys or Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird actually thought that far ahead. But I think that's just a fun little thing. And also, I forgot to mention, it's not just any skateboard. It's a turbo-powered, motorized, jetboard skateboard. See that big engine on the back that I'm just like shoving in your face? Like, look at it! Look at it! Look at it! I want all of you to look at it! So yeah, that's been Mondo Gecko. Moving on to the next figure, another really gruesome, awesome sculpt. We have another favorite of a lot of Ninja Turtles fans, Mutagen Man. And his little sidekick character, Joey Eyeball. Oh, let me get my fingers out of the way. His little sidekick character, Joey Eyeball, who has a... For a second I thought he had a wrench, but it turns out it's just one of his little arms poking up like he's going, hello. Yeah, these guys are very well sculpted. And unfortunately, like a lot of my Ninja Turtles figures, like a lot of Ninja Turtles figures in general, mine are starting to get sticky, which is basically just over the years the plastic is just starting to seep out and ooze out the stuff that they used to release these figures from the molds when they were putting them together back in the 90s. It sucks, but it is just what it is. Because when I originally got this guy, and when I originally got most of my collection, that was not a thing. None of these guys were sticky and, you know, kind of tacky to the touch. Like, if you listen. It's not a pleasant sensation. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the figure. So again, very, very cool sculpting on this guy. He's literally a man made of trash. He's got like a big, what do you call it? A sewer lid shield, not shield, sewer lid stuck in his foot. He's got his other foot that's all kind of gooey and just gnarly. He's got spots on his body, like right here, it's literally a bone poking through where the flesh is just kind of rotted off and fallen off. And that sculpt, that face, that is truly the face only a mother could love, and I think she would have to think about it for a little bit. So one of the awesome things about this figure is that he was one of those figures with an ooze-related action feature. So what you could do with him is you could take Joey Eyeball out of his little trash can backpack over here, and you could fill this up with the Retro Mutagen Ooze. Pardon me if I mispronounced that. The Retro Mutagen Ooze. And there was a little hole in the back of this, which plugs into his back. And the ooze would drip through that and be pulled through his body by gravity to come out this little hole right here in his midsection. I'm trying so hard to show off all this stuff, but yeah, if you see my hand right there through his belly, the ooze would drip out through the front and through the back. And another feature he had, is you can take this thing off the top of his head. Hold on, it's kind of stuck. Hopefully I don't break it. There we go. You can take this plug out of the top of his head, kind of lobotomize the poor little guy, and then you can fill his head with Retro Mutagen Ooze, and then he just like drools ooze all over the place. It's kind of gruesome, but it's also kind of fun. And that's basically the entirety of the Ninja Turtles toy line, is just kind of gruesome, but also kind of fun. Come on, get in there. There we go. I was trying to put it in the wrong way. But again, he's also got all these extra little bits and things molded into his body that, like Scumbug over here, they just never painted in because, well, they probably wouldn't have been able to get away with selling these toys with those features shown. Like I was showing the bone sticking out of that arm, and now he's got like flies and stuff attached to him. And on his other arm, he's growing a nice little field of mushrooms, or a nice little crop of mushrooms. And he just tried to drop his accessories. Stop it. All of you hold on to your accessories. It's hard enough getting them on you to begin with. Now this guy is one of those figures from the series that has trouble with the paint that's on him being rubbed off. Just, you know, general playwear and being knocked around in toy bins and closets and stuff over the last 20, 30 years. Thankfully, I was able to finally find one. I've had like 3 or 4 of these guys, and this is the first one I've found that actually has decent paint on the face. Most of the ones I've had, the pupils on the eyes, because they kind of poke out a little bit. Don't know how well y'all can see that. The paint just gets rubbed off from, you know, being pushed up against other things and general playwear. But thankfully, I finally found one with good paint on the eyes. So that has been Mutagen Man with his little buddy Joey Eyeball. And next we move on to another kind of an odd one for this wave. Because now most of the facts I'm using for this have come from just my own personal research over my lifetime, and of course refreshing my mind on several things using websites like the Virtual Ninja Turtle Museum, link to which I'm going to put in the description down below because it is a great resource. It's not a perfect resource because they're missing a lot of stuff, a lot of variants, and a lot of bits and pieces, but it is a good resource for basically getting acquainted with the line and just how expansive this particular set is. But anyway, according to that, another figure released in the 90 Ninja Turtles wave was Storage Shell Donatello, which, as a lot of you may know, was also released, well, as the majority of you may know, was released with his three brothers, Mikey, Leo, Raph. But originally, apparently, he was released with this wave, and then Playmates Toys was like, you know, that figure did so well, let's just make all four of them. And then they came out and they made all four of the Turtles in this particular style. As stated previously, Storage Shell Donatello. He's got a cool face sculpt, which is kind of reminiscent of the Talking Turtles that they released several years later, which I will get into at a later point. They released two versions of this guy, and I'm bringing this up now because unfortunately I don't have the second version of him because it's apparently really hard to come by. But notice how this one has a nice purple belt with his initial on it. They released a second wave of all four of the brothers with black belts, and the colors of the accessories being like all kinds of funky see-through yellows and reds and oranges. But the gimmick with this guy, if it wasn't already obvious from the name, is that his shell, it's got a little hinge on it. I think you can see that. So you can crack him open like an egg, and you can store all his extra little fiddly bits and accessories in there. Hopefully I can do this without spilling them. Let's see, all his accessories are in here, just all nicely packed away. Oop, come on. Sorry, sometimes these toys are a bit finicky, especially when they've got a bunch of stuff rattling around inside them. There's not really much more to him. He's basically just a basic Ninja Turtle figure who just happens to be able to store his accessories in his back. And he's got a new face sculpt. There you go. Storage Shell Donatello, everybody. Alright, down to the last two. There's only two more figures on this table, and then I can show you the other thing I wanted to show you about this line. At least this wave. Actually, I'm gonna save this guy for last. We're gonna jump ahead to the last figure on the table. One that is another fan favorite, Panda Con. Now obviously this guy is a samurai panda, and he is just one cool looking bad dude. But he's actually one of the good guys. Don't get me wrong, don't get it confused. He is one bad looking good guy. He's got the grimace like he is ready to take on the Foot, or whoever they were fighting. I think this might have been in feudal era Japan, along with Usagi Yojimbo. Or they could have been in the 20th century, I forget. This guy is actually a character from another set of comics, similar to Usagi Yojimbo over there. He was basically kind of licensed to Playmates Toys thanks to Stan Sakai. I believe that, yeah, I might be mispronouncing the last name, and if so, I am dreadfully sorry. And Panda Con here was licensed to them, and also in a similar fashion to Usagi Yojimbo, they actually credited the original creator on the bottom of the figure. He was from Sharp Garcia. Hold on, give me just a second. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be, and the lighting in here is not the most optimal. Yeah, Sharp Garcia was the guy who created Panda Con, and there were several crossover comic books, similar to Usagi over there, where the Turtles actually got to, fight alongside him, and they got to do battle with all these other baddies and stuff. And he's wearing his nice feudal-era samurai armor. He doesn't have the helmet, which I think that's just because they couldn't find one back then that would fit his head. Although I'm sure Playmates Toys could have molded one on there. I mean, frig, we've got Disguised Turtles, Sewer Samurai Leonardo, and he's got one of those helmets on. But that's a topic for another video. Apparently, he's been through a few battles. Some of his armor's got some chinks missing out of it. Links. And the actual word is chink, like the chink in the armor, so he does have a couple bits of damage. And he's got his sandals, he's got his shin guards, and I'm starting to kind of ramble. This guy came with a bunch of accessories, of which I only have two with this particular one. And of course, unfortunately, as is common with a lot of old action figures, this guy has been dealt a few blows to his face, and some of the paint on his nose has rubbed off. But that can be easily repaired. You just, get a little bit of a model paint or acrylic paint and just touch that up. Or if you're lazy and you want to kind of ruin the figure over time, you take a Sharpie marker, but I do not recommend that. I have done that in the past, and over time it just did not work out. Don't do it. Especially with figures molded in white plastic or light colors. Do not use Sharpie markers to fix paint rubs and stuff. It will not work well in the end. Don't do it! Learn from my mistakes. So anyway, that's Panda Con. And moving on to my personal favorite figure of all these figures on the table. The one, the only, Slash. Yes. The villain turtle who came out before Toka. And if y'all don't know who Toka is, shame on you. Go do your research. He was a villain in one of the movies. And also, interestingly enough, no, we'll get to that when we get to that particular video. It's not too far off anyways. So, anyway. One of the villain turtles, one of the few villain turtles, although I think I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think he became kind of an anti-hero in the original cartoon. I know he became kind of an anti-hero in the comics. And in the 2012 series, although in the 2012 series, his origin story is originally he was Raphael's pet turtle Spike, but then he became mutated and he decided that he no longer wanted to be known by the name of Spike, and he decided to name himself Slash. Anyway, so we've got Slash here. He comes with these very bright pink weapons, and he's got all these different little bits of armor on. He's got these hand spikes, kind of reminiscent of his Shredder origins, at least Shredder origins in accordance with the original cartoon. I'm sorry if I'm starting to kind of lose energy, but I've been talking for quite some time now. Hopefully y'all have been entertained this whole time. If you've been entertained while I've been talking about these action figures and just going on and on, please hit that like button. I want to know if you guys actually like this stuff. And I would be surprised if you're actually still entertained at this point. He's got his belt with his initial on the front of it, which is comically spelled backwards because as bad at... I should watch my tongue. As hardcore of a character as this guy was, he was unfortunately lacking a little bit in the brains department. Like, the one clip I remember, he was talking like this, which kind of makes sense because, look at his dental work. I know Mondo Gecko had braces, but this guy actually needed them. But yeah, also he's got these cool little knee spikes going on his knee pads. I really hope that's showing up on camera. Some of this I'm having a bit of trouble with. And he's got these big spikes poking out of his shell like that, which is another very easy way to tell him apart from the turtles, other than, well, that awesome turquoise blue that he is. And also, he is, at least at this point in the toy line, he is the only turtle who was molded with a tail. And there's a kind of funny story behind that, because originally, when Playmates Toys was doing the sculpting and doing the prototypes on the original turtles, they originally had tails, because in the original comic book, they had tails. But there were concerns that it looked, because of the placement of where the tails were, that it looked like we were looking at anatomically correct turtles, if you catch my drift. And so Playmates Toys quickly just, it kind of scraped the tails off the sculpts, and boom, the turtles were born. Alright, so I'm going to move on to this next bit, which is going to be very brief. I've probably talked a little too much for this video, considering there's just so many and so much to talk about. So this next bit is basically just going to be kind of a show and tell. So I'm going to make a certain gesture with my hands, and when I do, it's going to suddenly pop over to the next bit. Ready, steady, go. Okay, not much seems to have changed for y'all over there, but we are moving on to this next little segment, which is where we get into the world of variants. Yes, because Playmates Toys, like a lot of other companies were starting to do at the time, decided that, excuse me, that they were going to go right on ahead and start releasing the same figures multiple times, just with different colorations and different stuff going on. So we're here now in Variant Corner, where we're going to take a look at the variants. So you've already seen what the figures looked like, what I think are the original versions of each of the figures looked like. Now we're going to just go through, and this is going to be a lot shorter. I'm just going to basically pick them up side by side and show you what's different about them, and let's just roll right into it, shall we? Let's go with really the least impressive of the variants. No offense to this figure. Napoleon Bonafrag. Okay, this is the normal one I showed you. And then we have his doppelganger, Napoleon Bonafrag. Now, if it wasn't extremely obvious, the main color difference between these two is that, well, they decided that they were going to paint the peace medallion on this one instead of leaving it blank like that one. Obviously, I'm joking. The big color difference here is they decided to make this one a more of a dark green rather than more of a tan color, and they made the spots all over him a lot more dark in color. And obviously, like I pointed out, they decided to go right on ahead and paint the peace medallion pink instead of leaving it blank and such. And yeah, that's the only difference. The accessories are all the same. The rest of the paint scheme on these figures are the same. The trunks are the same. The sandals are the same. Yeah, there you go. Oh, and this is the accessory that goes with him over here that he just isn't holding because, well, they only have two hands in most cases. And this guy was missing several accessories, so I just gave it to him so he would look better on display. Alright. So now that we got him out of the way, let's move on to Mondo Gecko. Now this guy, all the accessories and stuff are the same. You know, he came with the same skateboard, he came with the same set of stickers, but the accessories are not the main focus of what's different. Take into consideration his knee pad. This knee pad was never painted. Take into consideration the sticker on his shirt. Get real close up in there, because it's a very subtle difference. You'll notice that it is, in fact, ever so slightly different between the two. Although, surprisingly, the skulls on their skateboards are exactly the same. And I just realized the skateboard skulls actually have braces just like he does. And another thing to take notice of is the fact that this one, if you look at his face, he's got that blue kind of eyeshadow thing going on all over his face, where this one, they kind of skimped out on that little detail. Oh, and speaking of the tails, on this one they put blue all the way from his butt all the way down to the roller skate and all the way down to the tip, whereas on the re-released version they skipped out on the little roller skate. Everything else is exactly the same. So there you have it. Mondo Gecko, everybody. Alright, lay you two down. And next we come on to what is actually more weak sauce than the color variants between the Napoleon Bonafrags. Y'all ready for this? Are you ready? This is gonna blow you out of the water. You are gonna be so friggin' just, your minds are going to explode out of your skulls and ooze out of your nose at just the sheer epicness of this variant. Are you ready? Are you all ready for this? Don't even bother sitting down, because you'll just stand right back up when you see that they decided not to paint the boot on Scumbug. See, this is the normal release. This one's the not normal release. Everything else, literally everything else, is exactly the same. They painted the toe claws. They painted the hand claws. If I can figure out where his hand is. There it is. Painted the hand claws. They painted the face the same, and one of them just dropped his gun. Yeah, that is literally the only difference between these two. Playmates Toys just didn't paint his boot. Woo! Variant collecting, everybody. Okay. Hold on, I'm going to get his accessory while I see where it is, and then we'll move on to the next one. Pop that back in his hand. Ooh, ow. Ow, that is the first time I've hurt myself using this silly chair. The wheel, like, just caught the skin right above my pinky toe and just pinched it. That did not feel nice at all. Alright, so anyway, Scumbug, everybody, and his boot is unpainted. Alright, next we're going to move on to a slightly more impressive variant on this next figure. We're moving on to, of course, Pizza Face. Now, his cleaver leg just fell off. Put that back in there. But anyway, here's the original release. You know, he's got the sauce up here is painted on, and you know, the bugs and the ooze coming out of his mouth and the little tiny pupils and everything. And then we move on to his doppelganger, who conveniently dropped his shield. Thank you. Can you spot the difference? One of these things is not like the other. It's because his knife is painted, and they didn't paint the sauce in the same spot on his head. On his hat. What the heck's a hat? And of course they actually painted his pupils a lot more, you know, vividly, vibrantly. Like this one, I gotta get in really close so you can see his pupils. That guy is like, whoa. What did I put in that pizza? Oh my goodness. And of course, to make up for the paint that they put on the front, they didn't paint the stuff on the back. And yeah, really everything else seems to be the same between the two. Just, you know, the placement of the sauce, the placement of the green paint. That's the only difference between these two. So you go there, and you take your shield with you, and you go here, and you get your shield. Everybody happy? Good. Little heathens. Now then. So we've covered Napoleon Bonafrag, Mondo Gecko, Scumbug, Pizza Face, and there are 3 more figures that came with variants from this wave. And I'm going to jump into the one that was my favorite of the whole wave, Slash. So here's the initial release, as I already showed you. And this guy came with 3 separate variants, although there are people out there who are willing to argue that there are more than those, but I'm not one of those people. So there's the original release of Slash, with, you know, this coloration, that belt and stuff. And then there was a second release. I don't know if this is the second release or the third release, but this is the hardest to find of them, which is this Slash with a purple belt, which matches his shoulder guards, and the letter S, which is probably very hard for y'all to make out, is painted on in red, whereas originally it was in yellow. And now there is nothing else different between these two other than, you know, they made the chest very, very freaking bright yellow. Hopefully that's not hurting your eyes. And yeah, that's all that's different between these two. And there, in the words of Yoda, there is another. There is another version like this with the purple belt, and I believe the yellow chest, or he might have also come on, or it might have also come on this one, because I've heard from different people in the collecting community that the next variation, which I unfortunately don't have, I'm still on the lookout for, had this, was the red belt with a yellow S painted on it. And that was all that was different between that. I've heard people say that it was released on the yellow-bellied version. I've heard people say it was released on the mustard version. And there's also supposedly a fourth one, which I think I actually saw photographic proof of, which is this combination, which is the original black belt yellow S on the mustard yellow, or on the no, the word I just said, that color yellow on, you know, this yellow belly with that purple belt with that yellow S on it. What am I saying? I'm getting myself all confused. I've been talking about turtles for way too long. But anyway, there's also supposedly this fourth variation, which, if there's anyone in the collecting community who's watching this, don't go getting all excited. I had the belt originally from a pile of accessories that I already had, and then I got this guy and a lot of Ninja Turtles that I got for, like, dirt cheap, and I just threw that belt onto him because he was missing everything, and I gave him a little sword so he wouldn't look naked standing on the shelf with his other brothers. So there you go. So there are three, technically four variations of this particular Slash figure, and they mostly boil down to the paint on the belly and the belt, and the paint on the belt. Moving on. This next one, there are only three variants that I'm currently aware of. That would be Panda. The original variant is basically this one, where if you notice the gray on his snout, on his muzzle, there's not a whole lot of it, so he's kind of got what they refer to as white face going on. And I'm not talking about in that weird racial way. I'm talking about he literally has a white face for the most part. And then there's the gray muzzle version, or the gray face version, where they just kind of went to town with all that paint. See how it's a lot darker and it goes back a lot farther? And then there's another version, which is basically this exact same figure, but they went even farther with it and basically gave him an entire gray face. Like, they went all the way back to his bandana. And that's the only variant with him. The rest of the paint's the same, the accessories are all still the same, it's just, you know, the amount of gray they put on his face. Alright, let me double check myself before I get into this last one. We went over Slash, Napoleon Bonafrag, Mondo Gecko, Scumbug, Pizza Face, Panda. Okay, so now we're going to get on to the figure with the most variations. It's stupid. So, the first variation, one thing I started to comment on when I first brought Ray Fillet up on the screen to begin with, is the coloration of, or well, is the difference between color-changing features and not color-changing features. And there was only one version of this figure released that did not have the color change, to my knowledge. I could be wrong. Again, let me know in the comments below if you know what I don't. Which was this guy. And there goes his little starfish buddy. I forgot he was holding it. At least it landed on the table and not on the floor. But anyway, they made this version over here, which does not have a color change feature, and apparently he's the hardest to find of them. And hilariously, this was the first one I ever got when I started collecting Ninja Turtles more, I don't want to say seriously, but more in depth. Yeah, there was this version with the color change feature, this version without the color change feature, and then there was another version of this color change Ray where they just inverted the colors, which would be this guy, sorry that I'm holding him funny, his leg is busted off, and I was trying very hard not to show it, but I still got to super glue that back on. But anyway, there's this version where they inverted the colors. Like, you can kind of still make out that this is a darker shade than this out here, which means this would have been the purple V, and this would have been the red chest. And then, of course, you get into the card variations. And that's the reason why this guy has so many variations, is because there were some of these that were released where it actually showed that there was a color change feature on the card. There were some of these that were released that were the color change that did not show the color change feature. There were some, I think there were a couple of factory errors where it was this non-color change on a color change card. It's silly. It is so silly, the amount of variations for this one figure, just because of the card backs and the difference between, does he change colors, does he not change colors, what colors are the colors on his chest. It's silly. Like I said, twice, 3 times now. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That has been my look at the 1990 wave of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Playmates toy line, and a couple little bonus things here at the end. I may wind up splitting this episode into 2 episodes just because it's so long and I've been talking for so long that I'm sure a lot of you are getting bored by this point. So if the other videos just kind of abruptly stop when I'm talking about a certain thing, you'll understand why now. So with that said, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, and all other manner of being, this is your old buddy Oxleymations saying, if you like what you've seen here today, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon to be notified of future uploads once you are subscribed. Share this video with your friends. If you think they'll like them, or if you're not sure if they'll like them, do it anyway. You may be surprised. And on that note, this is Oxleymations, with all the love for my fan base out there, saying to you, cowabunga. I'll see y'all, there we go, in the next video. Later.